Hi, I'm Megan and I'm going to be doing a fantasy book talk with you today. I have chosen 5 fantasy books geared towards young adults that have been published in the last few years, so they're fresh reads if you are a fantasy reader, and I'm going to let you know all about them, and maybe you will be interested in reading one yourself. The first book that I chose was Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This is about a world where people are divided by blood. The red-blooded people are the commoners. They do the work. They are conscripted into the armies to fight the wars for the silvers, who are the ones who have all the supernatural powers. They stay in control because they have powers that the reds will never have from what is running through their blood. The main character, Mare, gets a job in the castle, and she hates the Reds because all of her brothers have been conscripted into the army. They're fighting battles for the Silvers. I'm sorry, she hates the Silvers, not the Reds. She is a Red. And she gets a job in the castle, and through some stroke of fate, she reveals that she has supernatural powers. Well, the Silver King is so worried that it will start an uprising because Reds are not supposed to have powers, that he sets up a plan to say that she was a long-lost daughter who got adopted by the Reds, but she was really a silver princess all along. Well, she is gets engaged to his son so they can do the cover-up, and she begins to work for a rebel army from the inside, and the story's all about her journey through the world of the Silvers and helping out the Reds with the rebel cause. It's a really great book. The second book I chose is Six of Crows by Leah Bardugo. She is also the writer of the Grisha trilogy, who lots of people are really interested in and think that they're really great reads. Six of Crows is about a character named Kaz, and he is tasked with breaking a professor out of jail who has created a drug that will give all the Grisha more magical powers than they already have, and it's highly addicting. Well, the man who would like Kaz to break him out of jail offers him a paycheck that he just can't pass up. So he assembles a team of criminals who are going to help him break this professor out of jail. Well, they, through prior experiences, all kind of have some animosity towards each other, and so they have to learn to trust each other and work together to break this man out of the jail. And while they are doing this, the intrigue between the characters and how they work together makes for a really great read if you want to check this book out. It's called Six of Crows. If you are interested in the fantasy world of the fairies, then this next book might be for you. It's The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. In this story, the main character, Jude, is kidnapped with her 2 sisters when she's 7 years old by some fairy folk who murdered her parents, and they are raised as foster children in the fairy world. And at first, Jude really resents the fairy folk for her fate, but she grows to love them and want to be a part of their society. She comes in contact with the youngest son of the king, who is Carden, and he is the cruel prince. He openly defies her, and she has to go against him in her quest to make it into acceptance in the fairy world. Along the way, she decides that she's going to become a knight, and her sister decides that she's going to become a part of the fairy society through marriage. And they go their separate ways, and the story's about how Jude finds her way in the fairy world. And if you are interested in the fairies, this book is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's also the first book of a series, so if you're into series, it might be for you. The fourth book that I picked is Everless by Sarah Holland. This is her debut novel, and it's about a world where blood is turned into money, and it is worth time. So the poor have to turn their blood into money to pay their taxes and their rents, and the rich can live forever because they consume the time that is given from the peasants. The main character, Jules, is out to save her father, and she is going against the Gerling family, who they worked for when she was a child. she is gonna go back there, and she's been exiled from there. She's gonna go back there to find out what happened in her past that has led them to where they are today. And when she goes back in to Everlist, she can pause time, and she realizes that the past is not really as she remembered it. She meets back up with two boys from her childhood, and whatever happens with them is going to decide her fate and her father's fate. And the story is about how she comes to terms with her past and makes decisions about her future. So if you want to read this one, it is called Everlist. The fifth and last book that I chose is Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh. This is about a necromancer named Odessa, and a necromancer is someone who brings people back from the dead. She goes into the Deadlands and gathers up the soul of someone who has passed and brings them back to Earth. And being risen from the dead has its cost. You have to stay covered with a shroud from head to toe, because if anyone who is alive catches a glimpse of a dead person's skin, then they become a shade, which is a zombie-like monster. When a shade kills one of the master necromancers, Odessa and her friends decide to go back into the Deadlands and avenge the master necromancer that got killed by the shade. But when they go back, Odessa's boyfriend gets killed by a shade. And so they begin to investigate what's going on, and they realize that there is a plot of someone creating shades on purpose and training them to attack. Odessa and her friends have to find out who is behind these crimes and bring them to justice. This is Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh. So in conclusion, the 5 books I chose are The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, 6 of Crows by Lee Bardugo, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, Everlist by Sarah Holland, and Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh. I hope that one of these books interested you, and if I had to pick a favorite, I would definitely pick The Red Queen. And it is the beginning of a series, so there are many more that you can continue on reading about these characters and this story. Thanks so much for your time.